Where is the best cocktail in Des Moines? And what does that even look like? That's the hunt. That's what we're doing today. Where's the best cocktail in Des Moines? Why does that matter? I'll tell you who has the answer, who thinks they have the answer. Rex Schultz, the bar manager at Splash, joins us today. We're going to do a little bit of where's the best cocktail, but also maybe how do you make it, mistakes that you make, that kind of stuff. That's what we're going to cover today. From iowapodcast.com, I'm Justin Brady, and we're joined with Rex in studio. Thanks for coming here.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks for having me today.
Happy to have you here. Let's start here. Would you agree that the best cocktail in Des Moines is, of course, it's Splash?
Honestly, I do. And there are a lot of, and that's saying a lot because Des Moines is blessed with a lot of great cocktail bars. And, so that's making a bold claim. For me, the best cocktail is the one that best suits your experience for that evening. That doesn't mean that the greatest cocktail is always in the same place. I go to different cocktail bars all over the place. My wife and I just went to Highland Park last Friday, a brand new joint open that was super cool. Great cocktails. Are they as great as at Splash? I don't think so. And because, I'm back at Splash, I'm backed up by one of the best kitchens in the state, bar none. And so a lot of the time, the cocktails that I have are, made with the premium, techniques and ingredients. But also I've got that the menu behind me that's going to back that up. So it makes for a great experience.
You mentioned something interesting I want to talk about, which is you almost linked routine with cocktails or something like special events with it. You mentioned something like it depends on the day or depends.
Absolutely.
What is that about? You actually match cocktails to routine or to
let's start with a classic example. Champagne. It just bespeaks Valentine's Day and romance and everything else.
Yeah.
So if you come in to Splash anytime in February, we're going to be pushing sweetheart cocktails, and we're going to be pushing champagne for sure. It's and then come March it's going to be Irish whiskeys and all of that. So, I try to pair those. We get a lot of business downtown, people celebrating, which is great. And so January you got New Year's Eve, February you've got of course Valentine's Day, and you've got St. Patrick's Day, Cinco de Mayo. We're blessed with a lot of celebratory things that people come in, and so we try to pair those events with the spirits and the wines that people associate with those holidays.
Sure. So yeah. I guess I didn't think of cocktails being cyclical or seasonal.
Oh yeah, a lot of seasonal stuff. So one of the great things at Splash is the owner Bruce gives me a great deal of leeway. I should one clarification: I'm not the bar manager. I'm the head bartender. I've got a great manager at the bar. His name's Adam, and he does all the heavy lifting when it comes to management. All I got to do is show up and make those drinks and collect the money. So there's a guy behind the scenes, like I said earlier, in the kitchen. We're a team at Splash, and it makes that happen. But we've got a new seasonal cocktail now called the Splash Manhattan, which is made with Templeton Rye right here from Iowa, and it's a classic cocktail made with pomegranate syrup that we make in-house, and it's really a great cocktail.
Do you find that a lot of people have they return to certain favorite cocktails, or do people do seasonal cocktails depending on the season?
That's a great question. So I've been doing this for 30 years in the Des Moines market, 35 years actually.
Jeez.
And so I've made a lot of cocktails. And when I first got into it in 1990, I got into it at TGI Fridays. The movie Cocktail with Tom Cruise was the thing. And so, I've gone through, Long Island's iced tea were the club drink of the day. Yeah, I make them in my sleep. And my wife thinks I'm having a seizure. I guess what I'm going with that is not only is there a seasonality to it, but there are eras of cocktails. And at Splash in the last 5 years, since COVID, for sure, the classics, Old Fashions, Manhattans, the daiquiri, Negronis, the classics from, the 30s and 40s are back in style.
Yeah, I love a Negroni.
Yeah.
An Italian friend of mine told me about them. They're super good.
And, that opens up that whole curtain of Amaros, those bitter Italian liqueurs that, I guess I'm alluding to the not only are there fashions in drinking, but there are palates that open up, like those whole bitter Amaro drinks, like the Negroni that's opened up. Espresso Martini came out 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Really?
And and really revolutionized, brought back the martini again. And, it's martini in that it's served in a martini glass, but it's a far distant cousin from a classic vodka or gin martini.
Sure. Yeah, that's absolutely fascinating because you're talking about all these trends, and I guess I kind of assume most cocktails have been here for a while, but the espresso martini, you said, is only 10 years old, or when did you?
It's under 15 years old.
I thought that was super old.
It came. There's. I'm reading a book called A Proper Drink, and the first chapter is all about the espresso martini and the London. It came out of a bar in London, and several lay claim to it, but allegedly a international starlet came in, a model, and ordered a drink that would wake her up and F her up, if you will. and the martini the espresso martini was born.
That's super funny. So one of the interesting things you do is a lot of people like to come out and try new things.
Yep.
They like to rely on the experts. And I will say, I always kind of thought just bartender or mixologist was like anybody can throw stuff in a that's not that hard. It is actually quite hard because there's timing, there's certain, like, you have to shake it a certain way. The more I learn about this, the more difficult some of these things are. So people, well, some people probably want to go out for a cocktail every night, but for those of us who want to stay home and do some things, what are some of the biggest, like, what are some of the easy cocktails for people to make? They're like really popular. It's pretty easy. Anybody can make it. Start here. Because you guys do classes, I think.
We do. Well, let me tell you a little bit about myself, and let me answer that that way, a long way around. Not only am I the head bartender at Splash, but I teach out at the Iowa Culinary Institute at DMAC. And for 10 years, I've been in their culinary program, and I teach beverage management, classes about the history of spirits. And so it's a passion of mine. And we re-ask me that question when you come back at me.
Yeah, you were talking about DMAC and your
expertise. And so at DMAC, one of the things that my students are interested in is just what you've been asking about. How do we get started? And of course they're looking at big picture. They're going into the hospitality industry, but from all different angles, not just restaurateurs. Some of them just want to be better cooks and drink makers.
Sure. Yeah.
Bartenders and mixologists are two different things. I've been a in my mind. I just want to clarify. So we're using the same terms. So I've been a bartender for 30 years, 35 years. I've been a mixologist for about 15. And when I make this distinction to my culinary students, I use language that they're familiar with. I say, a lot of you are cooks. You work as cooks in the kitchen. You follow recipes that a chef has designed and tested. And once those are all regulated and priced out, they're reduced into a recipe. And a cook performs those recipes, just like a bartender performs recipes. A chef, the analog that I'm using here would be the mixologist. So the mixologist is the guy or the woman who puts together the recipes and curates those spirits and which of these 15 rums is going to go into our Mai Tai and all of that. A bartender comes to work and turns the key and fills the ice bucket and fills those recipes. I'm not diminishing what they do.
It's a different role.
It's a different word. It's a different thing. But bartenders don't get to go on podcasts and talk about how great their recipes are. Mixologists get to do that, and so I've participated in lots of contests. I was lucky enough to win the Iowa Restaurant Association Mixologist of the Year 10 years ago, and have been participating with the Iowa Restaurant Association ever since, judging and other things along with those contests. So the mixology revolution in Iowa is real, and it's about 20 years old.
Fascinating. So when you're dealing with the students at DMAC, like, treat our listeners as students.
Yep.
Like, what are some of the easy cocktails where you can kind of impress your friends, but they're basic and you can do them at home? They're not too difficult.
I would approach that as I would somebody who came into my bar and asked me for a drink. drink. I would ask you, the very first thing is I would explore, what spirits do you like?
Oh, okay.
And so, I'm going to, if you're a whiskey guy, those first three cocktails are going to be, an old fashioned and a mint julep, a Manhattan. That's pretty much exhausted the list of whiskey cocktails. There aren't a lot of them.
And there they are.
Vodka, but almost nobody says vodka. Well, a lot of people say they drink a lot of vodka, but vodka is hard because it's technically an odorless, flavorless, spirit. Not a lot of people are drawn to it for its qualities. That doesn't say it is the number one consumed spirit in the country and in Iowa as well. Yeah, Tito's took over the spot.
Sure,
yeah,
good point.
Yeah, but anyway, gin, rum, tequila, mezcal. If you were to tell me one of those spirits, I would definitely steer you down that particular road. But a lot of my students at DMAC will ask me, I'm a poor college kid. I have $100 to spend. What help me put together a basic bar?
Yeah.
And what I would do is I would go for quality. You spend a little bit more, find one that you like, and master that realm of cocktail. So let's say that. Let me ask you, what would your answer be? What spirit are you drawn to? Justin?
Bourbon, Scotch,
okay,
yeah.
bourbon. Yeah. So
and vodka.
There you go.
I like a good martini, vodka martini.
Yeah, me too. And. So with bourbon is kind of, we're in the tail end of the bourbon heyday that's been going on for about 10 years.
I did have Negroni stuff in my house too.
Negronis are great too.
That's a super easy one, by the way. It's just like one part. Really, really easy.
I'm so glad you said that. So one of the things we do at Splash, I'm going to tie it into a thing that we do at Splash. The first Thursday of every month, I do a spirits class. So last month we did. In October, this month we did rum. Next month I'm going to do finished spirits, then Japanese whiskey. In January we're going to do. It's my wife's idea. I don't know if it's a great idea, but because of dry January, we're going to do zero proof spirits.
I think that's smart.
Well,
that's
my wife
really
agrees
smart.
with you. Yeah,
that's really hot.
Yeah, and I'm hoping it will be. In February, we're going to do a champagne class, and that one fills up right away. We usually do one or two of those. And what's cool about classes like that is you get to put, for like champagne, you might be able to try $800 or $900 worth of champagne, for $100 entry price. So we're going to try. We'll try a bunch of different champagnes. So, but once we open them, we're going to drink them. Yeah. So that's what's cool about those classes is being able to try different things. When we do a bourbon class, we'll try 7 or 8 different bourbons, with different mash bills and different styles, so that you can see, one against the other. It's really hard to remember, what that maker's mark you had, 3 months ago was compared to this, Penelope here that you're trying tonight. So it's hard. That's what's cool about those classes is putting them back to back and having that opportunity.
Yeah. So you're doing tastings, but are you also teaching people how to make stuff too?
We do hands-on labs too, some mixology labs. People love that. We have the Piranha Room is the special room that we have at Splash.
It's cool vibe.
It's very cool, and we do private parties in there, and I like to do my Splash classes in there. When we do mixology classes on hands labs where you, the guest, are making cocktails, what I like to do is I have to limit it to 20 people. We'll have 5 stations of with 4 people each, and so 4 people are. So you're in a group of 3 other people, and you're basically every 20 minutes moving to a new station and making different drinks.
Oh, that's cool.
And to tie into what you were talking about, the Negroni, one class I did was drinks from the 1930s and 40s, and during that era, they were very big on the equal parts cocktails. So the sand and the stone.
That was a trend.
Very much so. Very much so.
Equal parts cocktail trend. Who knew?
Yeah, and so the Negroni was born of that era, and pre-Prohibition.
Is that just because of the simplicity? Why was that a trend?
I think so. Yeah, and it kind of goes back to the you want the art to be approachable to the average guy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it can be off-putting.
Right.
And the equal parts is great for bartenders. Bartenders love those drinks, and of course, like anything, it's not as advertised. So the Negroni, for those listeners who don't know, is gin, Campari, and sweet vermouth. The Campari being that Italian bitter.
Yeah,
and
it's like the red vermouth, right?
It is. Well, and sweet vermouth is that.
Is it the same thing?
This, there's three. Sweet vermouth is, as you would think, sweet. Campari is the bitter, and then the gin brings that herbaceous element. And of course, there are. If you take my gin class, you'll find out that there are. It's made all over the globe, and that there are any styles. There's dry gin and American contemporary style.
I don't know if I'm going to. Well, I don't know if I'm going to offend people, but I would say the variation in gin is way. I mean, it tastes like totally different liquors sometimes.
Absolutely,
it is crazy.
And it's funny. For gin is a great example. So with these classes, over the years I've been doing it for 8 years at Splash. So over the years I've developed 24 different. The Japanese whiskey that I'll be delivering in December will be my 24th class that I've written.
Oh, really?
So yeah, it's part of the fun for me doing them at Splash is first I get a lot of repeat people who come back and forth. But I get to investigate and find out and, become expert in this, area for a while. And I do have a Master of Spirits that I earned through the International Court of Sommeliers. But it's a chance for me to flex those muscles a little bit and get out there and try different things under the pretense of science and education.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
it's very cool.
So you're teaching classes at Splash. You're also teaching classes at DMAC in the mixology era.
Yeah.
I've also been told you have like a PhD in something, and that the conversations at Splash are very philosophical when you're at the bar there.
My father was a physician here in town and was a lifelong learner. And while I scoffed at that as a young man, I went to Drake and started as a pre-med major. One rainy afternoon, I discovered Socrates, and my life was never the same. I switched to a philosophy major, pursued that in graduate school, came back to Drake University, taught in the philosophy department for 20 years. And the whole time, to this day, while I'm teaching, I've always done teaching more or less as a side gig and, paid my bills bartending. So, it's been a nice cohesive thing for me, really. My life came together that way. So philosophy is, the life, the philosophy is the study of love and of life, and it's really been the centerpiece of my life, and that's what bartending really allows me to do.
Yeah, that collision is fascinating.
Yeah, it is. Splash is a cool place.
So let me lay this out for people who haven't been there. Splash used to be the Met years ago.
Yep.
It is a very, very fascinating layout.
Yeah.
There are all these different levels. You mentioned you have the piranha room. There's that little oyster bar nook on the side,
right.
And then the bar is kind of a cool vibe. There's some glass in there.
Yeah.
So you're having, I'm assuming when we go to a bar, sometimes if you're by yourself or with just a small group, you often talk to the bartender, right? So are we having deep philosophical conversations at your bar in this Splash kind of vibe? I mean, lay that out for us. That would probably be our final question.
That's the coolest part of my job is I never know. We had last week we had Paul McCartney was in town, and so my restaurant got crushed.
Oh, really?
Oh my gosh!
Did Sir Paul come to your bar?
Yeah, we're just three. But no, we didn't know. Not that I was there, and if he did, I couldn't say. But right. But we do. So sometimes we're just a busy restaurant that I come home and I'm tired and I'm sore, and we just served 100 and some people, and
sure.
But sometimes it's way back. It's laid back and it's quiet. Last year, I had a guy that came in, sat at the bar, and I thought I had recognized him, and I said, "Are you in government?" And he smiled and laughed, and he told me who he was, and he was running for president. And he was a political candidate, and it was just him, and it was a slow night, and so he and I chatted for 45 minutes to an hour, and I don't have opportunities to talk to governors of states and
right.
Political, but I do there, and so it's so cool. Yeah, and you never know who the people are. the vibe in the bar is a little less pretentious, a little bit low key. Not that the dining room is pretentious. I didn't mean that. It's just that we do get
It's
into
just more casual.
You asked about, do we get into heavy conversations? We do.
Yeah.
Not in the dining room.
Well, that makes
You had
sense.
Scott Valder here the other day. Was talking our fish guy.
Yeah.
You know, he knows. You know, and you're going to have a fine dining experience with him. Bart second to none.
And I'm sure there's like a lot of celebrity spotting over your career. And
Absolutely.
I don't expect you to drop names, but maybe you can. But you're right by the Civic Center, Performing Arts
Absolutely.
Center. Are there some names you can drop that you've had
one of my
conversations?
favorites happens to be one of my favorite entertainers ever. Elvis Costello was a singer, a performer in the 90s, and a new wave artist. And he came. He was in town. This is a couple years back, and he came in and sat at the bar, and I said, Elvis? He says, yeah. And I introduced myself, told him what a huge fan I was. I knew he was in town to play Hoyt Sherman, and he pointed over to the Civic Center, and he said, he looked at it, he goes, I think I've played there. I said, yeah, you did. It was 82. I saw you. Yeah. And he said,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
So it was very cool. Yeah.
That's
and
incredible.
So I've seen dozens of celebrities and politicians and famous people, the swells here in Des Moines, the people that, the movers and shakers, they know me by my first name. That would never happen anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want the best cocktail in Des Moines and a deep dive conversation, one of the coolest vibes, I think, and probably maybe the state.
Yeah.
The place to go is Splash, and we've been talking with Rex Schultz, what do we call it? Head mixologist at Splash, mixologist extraordinaire.
I go by head barman, but
Thank you
that works.
so much for
Thank
coming
you.
on iowapodcast.com.
It's been
Really
my pleasure.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much.